You know, a lot of times in trials like the Joshua Young trial, jurors will get really connected with the physical evidence. There's not a lot of it here, but one thing that's critical, how did Trey Zwicker die? How will that play into this? Was he beaten with a blunt object like a bat, or was it a sharp object like a knife? The truth is, we may never know exactly what happened to him, but his autopsy gives us some clues that could help the jury convict Joshua Young or set him free. Earlier, I spoke to Joseph Scott Morgan. He's a forensic sciences professor at the University of Georgia. Tell us about the difference between a sharp force injury and a blunt force injury.
Yeah, let's take a look at this very quickly. As we see right here, we've got a tomato. This side of it represents smooth, pristine skin, as we would see, without a bruise on our skin. But if we rotate this tomato around, we can see this kind of insulted area here that's soft and bruised. And we can all identify with this in a tomato or an apple. But if we take this, turn it back around to the untapped side, we take a knife, we apply it, and we draw it across the surface of the tomato just like this. As we can see, this gap opens up, and there's nothing connecting it. It's completely smooth. We have what are referred to as defined margins right here. There's nothing connecting it. This is what we get when we have a sharp force injury take place.
You know, officers talked about how a lawnmower blade was found at the scene. Could a lawnmower blade cause that kind of injury? Because they never tested it.
Absolutely. The thing that you have to think about a lawnmower blade is that the blunt leading edge, or the blunt side of the blade itself, is very, very heavy. Remember, she talked about something that was heavy with a sharp edge. It has to have the force to be able to drive through the tissue and separate it, parting it, making it wide open. This is what we're seeing here.
Okay, could have caused that injury, but again, never tested. So let's take a look at the body. Joseph, how do you think Trey Zwicker died?
I tell you what, let's take a look at the diagram real quick.
Okay.
Here we have, this is from the actual autopsy run. We have these parallel lines that are running right here where the doctor is attempting to demonstrate this large area of contusion or bruising as we know it. Now, what this is indicative of, this was not just created by one blow, but multiple blows to the back. We have here a dummy that's representing a human form. We can take, say for instance, a blunt instrument like this bat. Now, keep in mind, these injuries run diagonal to the shoulders. So what's going to happen is that there's got to be a striking motion that comes down on the shoulders repeatedly, over and over again. Now, as you can see, as I'm striking this, I'm not moving my base. I'm not moving my feet, just simply my arms coming down over it. Now, if I were to try to move about, the position of this thing would change. As we can see back here in the diagram, it doesn't really change. We've got the same pitch, the same angle. These are all diagonal. They're running parallel, and this big area of contusion is being created here by repeated strikes.
But could the ME tell whether or not it was a bat or a pole, like Josh Gauker said?
Well, you know, I don't know. I think that's questionable. I think that if there were some kind of, say if we had a pipe that had threading on it, where it was driven into the back and that left an impression, quite possibly. But if we're dealing with smooth surfaces, Ryan, we're dealing with smooth surfaces, whether they're metal or whether they're wooden or aluminum.
Describe for us how you then think Trey Zwicker was, what position he was, what was happening with him at the moment that he died.
This is where it gets really, really sad. Not that it's not sad enough already, but we have a young boy here that is in a horrible state. He's been desperately debilitated at this point, and he's laying in an area that's just mud-covered, wet, nasty, and he's face down, Ryan. He's debilitated. He's not able to breathe really well. And now he very well might be unconscious, but his last moments on this earth, his last moments in life are spent in the mud, inhalating this, and this led to positional asphyxia. He couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. He suffocated to death.